We're about to start a new astronomical season with spring officially arriving on Thursday just before midnight Eastern Time. So it's time to check in with Dr. Chris Palma from the Penn State Department of Astronomy and Astrophysics, also an Associate Dean in the Eberly College of Science. Welcome back, my friend.
Hello.
It's great to see you. Let's start out with some of the interesting research coming out of your department. We hear a lot about SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Now, some Penn State astronomers are actually looking for signs that someone or something out there is looking for us.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that research.
Sure. And this is great because it's work done largely by a graduate student, Sophia Sheikh. And so this is work that's been going on in one form or another since the 1960s, using radio telescopes to try and search for signals from potential other civilizations. What was really different this time was that they targeted stars where we know the planets are orbiting that star in essentially the same plane as us, so they would be able to see Earth if they were trying to detect planets around the sun. And so that's how they targeted the particular star systems that they were studying. But the other interesting thing is, as long as we've been doing this, you say, since the 1960s, surely we've spent all this time, we have all this data. The really nice analogy I thought we both liked was that the amount of space we've searched for these signals is, if you think of that as the oceans of the world, we've searched the equivalent of a hot tub worth of those oceans for these signals.
Interesting. So you're saying then that if these civilizations were looking for us, they would be able to detect transits.
Yes,
much
exactly.
like we use that technique to look for them.
Yes.
Oh, that's fascinating. And then also coming out of your department was the discovery of a new type of pulsating star, and that is somehow related to the SETI research?
Well, I would say it's related to exoplanet research in particular. And the reason I say that is, when I was studying astronomy, we heard fairly often, we really understand stars pretty well. Like, our models for stars can reproduce their behavior pretty well. But on the other hand, like in science, anytime we study something in more detail, we find things we don't know. And so a lot of times in studying stars to search them for planets, we are finding new behavior of the star that can mimic the presence of a planet. And so that's why these results, like new types of pulsating stars, are coming out, because of all the effort trying to identify planets.
Got it. I'm going to switch topics a bit here to a question that's bugged me for a while. And we hear that the universe is about 14 billion years old, something like that. So logically, the farthest we could see out would be 14 billion light years. But that's actually not the case. Can you explain that?
I can try.
Okay.
This is one of those where you probably have to sit and think it through a fair amount. But the really big difference is, we talk all the time, the universe is expanding, right? So if you say, how far away are we right now, we can pull out a ruler and measure that distance. But if we say, how far away is a distant galaxy? Well, you can say, how long has the light been traveling to get to us? And it might be 10 billion years. But in that intervening 10 billion years, the universe has expanded. And so the distance that object is today is different than it was at the time the light was emitted. So like I said, you got to really chew on that answer for a few minutes.
It actually sounds like a pretty good calculus problem, but we'll save that for another day. I saw recently SpaceX successfully launched another unmanned capsule supply ship to the ISS. Seems like it's becoming routine. Where are we in this privatization of spaceflight? And when do you think humans are actually going to climb on top of one of these SpaceX rockets?
Well, you hear different answers if you ask NASA than if you ask SpaceX, right? And I think we really need to understand that, I mean, SpaceX is doing some amazing things, but it truly is a partnership between our space agency and this private company. I don't think SpaceX would be anywhere near where they were if it wasn't for the contracts from NASA and a lot of the expertise that NASA has shared with them. But on the other hand, that comes with NASA's tolerance for risk, right? So Elon Musk is famous for doing things like launching cars into space, but NASA would only want to do things like that if they were really, really sure something bad wasn't going to happen. And so SpaceX claims we could have humans riding one of those rockets in a few months, but NASA says, let's make sure everything we can do to make those astronauts safe is happening first. And so I really still think we're more than a year or two off from that.
So the chances of it happening in 2020, you would rate
pretty low.
Fairly low.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're even talking about private citizens. I mean, I saw an article, you can buy a seat on a SpaceX capsule to the ISS for a cool $55 million, and there are two seats still available.
Yeah.
We always like to close by giving you a chance to give some tips on some of the best sky watching items over the next couple weeks.
Yeah. I'm going to focus on Venus, which I think we've done a little bit before, but you just can't miss Venus, right? If you go outside, the brightest thing you see after the sun and the moon is the planet Venus. It's eye-catching. But here's what I want to sort of put a wrinkle on this. We talked last time we were together about how objects in the solar system go around the sun, right? So Venus goes around the sun more quickly than Earth does. Earth goes around the sun more quickly than Mars does. You can actually see this. So right now, if you look in the sky and you locate Venus, and you locate the Pleiades star cluster, and if we get enough clear nights where you can watch that night after night, you're going to notice the distance between them shrinking as Venus is moving around the sun. And so I really encourage people to look for the Pleiades star cluster and the planet Venus and watch it for a few nights, and you'll be in for a show.
All right. Chris, thanks very much. It's always good to have you around. We will be back in a moment with a recap of the short-range forecast.